That's I'm learning all sorts of things with these Zoom meetings and MP4 files and MP3s that I did not anticipate. I thought I knew everything.
I bet it's I recently launched a like live stream series on YouTube and learning the different software and like making sure things get from point A to point B. It's like a whole other thing in itself. It's like there's too much going on.
Okay. Welcome to The Right Focus. Why don't you introduce yourself and let's start with you talking about your books.
Of course. One, thank you very much for having me. I'm really excited to be a part of this new endeavor for you. My name is Sarah Burr. I write, it's almost sometimes hard keeping track of them all. I write several series. My latest book is called #FollowMe for Murder. It's book 1 in the trending topic mysteries. I'm a big technology person. I absolutely love it. And so that's kind of really how my trending topic series came to be. I'm first and foremost a huge cozy mystery reader. Absolutely love cozy mystery books. That's mostly what I write. I do have a very, I guess, unique series that is actually the first book series that I published that's called the Court of Mystery series. And it's a medieval-based fantasy world where the main character, who is a duchess, she solves crimes. So she goes around to different castles and events solving the murders that pop up there. And so that was the first series that I wrote, and I'm still writing.
I'm interested in that one because I'm a history buff and I love Middle Ages.
Yeah, it's really fun because because it is also fantasy based, I can do a lot of very fun things that definitely probably were not apparent in the Middle Ages. But it is with language and, technology at the time. There's no running water. It doesn't take, you can't hop in a car or, to get from point A to point B. So all the travel takes a really long
cell phones.
No cell phones. Yes. And actually, so that makes it a lot of fun because there's just right now in the contemporary mysteries that I write, there's so much information at the fingertips of my characters that it's like they can Google something or they can look up something on social media. Whereas in my Court of Mystery series, the characters very much are mostly up to their own devices. And it's like, if they know it, they do, or they have to find someone who is an expert or a scholar in the subject. So it's really exciting. And I absolutely love that series. It's very dear to my heart. My other published series is called the Glenmire Whim Mysteries. And the first book in that series is called You Can't Candle the Truth. I love a good pun. That's one of my favorite things about cozy mysteries. You Can't Candle the Truth is actually paranormal cozy. There are some supernatural elements to it, although it's not like very much steeped in the supernatural. It's the main character has the ability to see what she calls a life clock hanging over someone's head, and it tells them when they are destined to die.
Oh, that's freaky.
She knows when people are going to leave this world, but she's able to wear special glasses that actually obscure the life clock from her vision, so she's not constantly tormented by it. However, there are instances where her glasses get knocked askew or her glasses slip down, and as someone who wears glasses, it's like, oh, there's nothing more annoying when your glasses slip down and you have to adjust. So when she does see someone's life clock, how that affects her, but also how it affects a mystery that pops up in her hometown, which is located in the fictional upstate New York village of Crucible. So I think that's the trending topic mysteries, the Court of Mystery series, and the Glenmire Whim mysteries are my current published works.
That sounds very interesting. How did you decide? Well, let me back up. How did you go about publishing those? Do you have an agent? Did you?
Yes, so I straddle both worlds of indie publishing and traditional publishing. My Court of Mystery series and my Glenmeyer Wynn Mysteries are self-published. And I first got my start in the publishing industry through self-publishing, and I wanted to see if I could get an agent and I could get a book published through a publishing house. And it was kind of a little challenge that I issued to myself. I love the indie publishing industry. I love having the creative control over my characters, over my covers, over all of my marketing materials. I really thrive in that environment, but I wanted to see, you know, how traditional publishing was different, if I could do it at all. It's certainly not a guarantee, but I was very lucky because the hashtag Follow Me for Murder, I wrote it, I guess probably now 5 years ago. And so the fact that it just came out in February, like, your listeners can hear how long the publishing process can take. And so I wrote it about 5 years ago, and I started querying because I felt that it was a book that had potential for a publisher to say, oh, you know, this may be where our market is going, and you know, let's get on this, because I had noticed a trend in the cozy mysteries that I was reading that many of the main characters were deathly afraid to use technology. I read so many scenes about young women leaving their phones at home, forgetting to plug them in, what have you. And I'm like, my phone is as like a second, or I have multiple appendages, but it's another appendage to who I am.
Right.
And it's like, I always have it in my hand, or within reach. So I thought, you know, what if a main character embraced the modern wonders of technology and really used it as part of her investigation, not as just, you know, it used it really as a tool to figure out like who her killer was, who her victim was.
Right.
So with that idea, I started toying with things and eventually created a character, created a whole fictional world of Central Shores, Delaware, which is where the book takes place. And then I started querying.
Right.
And I think I was on probably 70 rejections for agents by the time I took to Twitter and was like, oh, woe is me. No one's ever going to publish my book. This is hard. Like, feeling very down in about myself and my writing. Because, you know, the rejections you get are, you know, none of them are ever really that personable.
Right. Yes.
But you feel them each time. And I think any rejection I get to this day, I still feel it, even though I know it's not personal. So I was, you know, on Twitter lamenting my woes about publishing, and a Twitter friend of mine, another author, he reached out and said, my agent is looking for books like this. You know, here's her name, here's her contact information. Why don't you give it a shot? And probably a week later, I had a signed contract for a literary agent.
So modern technology came to your rescue.
I was like, talk about the wonders of technology. Like, I think that was probably the last positive experience I had on Twitter. It was, you know, the writing community on Twitter is so wonderful. It's probably the only reason why I log into the website these days, just to connect and support the authors that are on there. But yeah, so I signed with a literary agency, and from there, I would say that the publishing process, you know, we went through kind of several rounds of, you know, how do we market this book to publishers? You know, where do we see the series going? Thinking about all of these big picture things as part of the proposal process. And then several years passed before kind of got a nibble that eventually turned into a wonderful partnership with Level Best
Right.
Books, which as they published hashtag Follow Me for Murder this past February. So I straddle both hemispheres of publishing and love both of them for the pros that they bring to the
Right.
table. So it's fun.
Now, was your book, your traditionally published book, affected by the paper shortage last year and everything got back?
You know,
Huh?
I don't believe so,
Mhm.
because my book had just not like been, I think, far enough along in the
Right.
process.
Mhm.
And yeah, so I was lucky that my traditionally published book was not affected. I did on the independent publishing side of things, you know, there was that increased wait time for someone who orders a physical copy of your book.
Right. Mhm.
Usually it's produced within, I think, like 2 business days. And this time around, it was like 4 weeks before books began shipping.
Right.
And that's always a disappointment for me because my readers are disappointed.
Right.
So it definitely, I think the pains reverberated all through the industry.
Yes, all through. That's what I noticed. Um, what is it that led you to do the hashtag? I guess you saw the technology, uh, sort of, I don't know what a version one could say. And so I guess you saw, I want to write a cozy, and here's a niche, and then you tried to formulate into that niche.
Exactly.
Mhm.
I think so. The writing that has always been most successful for me has been me taking some of my life experience and forming it into a story. And my life experience has always really included technology.
Right.
And it was something that in a genre that was so that I was just so heavily invested in as a reader that
Mhm.
I began to feel like I can't connect as closely with these characters anymore because they're not utilizing technology.
Right. And it's
Or
so much a part of my life. It would bother me if somebody forgot to put, but because I'm constantly checking the power level on my phone because I
for
use
sure.
it so much.
And so what that presented itself with was, well, how do you create tension in a mystery book if
Mhm.
you know your character really has all the answers at their fingertips, or in certain situations the one that was like, why is this happening, is
Mhm.
when you know a main character goes to confront the killer. Maybe they don't know that they're confronting the killer at the time. Maybe that aha moment comes as they are, you know, speaking with them or what
Mhm.
have you. But there were just so many instances where, as a plot device, the phone was forgotten because, you know, it would really kind of kill the whole suspense thing. It's like if you could just
Mhm.
call 911 and report that something bad was going down. So I had to really figure out how to incorporate technology in a realistic manner, but also keep those traditional elements of suspense and, you know, the main character going out and speaking with people face to face.
Mhm.
I think that that's part of the cozy genre that I love so much, is that sense of community and
Right.
folks
Mhm.
going to each other and having conversations and learning more details about either the victim or their potential suspects. So trying to figure out a way to incorporate technology into the novel, but not remove those elements that I, as a reader, love, and I'm sure many cozy mystery readers love. That was the real challenge. But once I started really thinking about it, I discovered that you can actually lay a lot of groundwork ahead of time for your audience and for your main character. If you're kind of doing the I guess the fact finding, when you're like initially figuring out like, who is my victim? You know,
Mhm.
for in Coco's case, she's not really that familiar with the woman who has died. She has worked with her for a couple of weeks as the woman is an assistant for her clients, her current clients, because Coco kind of has a double life as a social media influencer and a consultant, and helping local businesses boost their social media presence. So, Coco's been interacting with these local business owners, not so much with the staff of the establishment. And so she really doesn't know that much about this young woman. So she can kind of start figuring things out on social media, and then go to the people that, she finds out are her friends, checks out locations of places that she's visited, and really kind of do that traditional boots on the ground investigation in a much more knowledgeable manner, because she has that understanding of, you can look at somebody's Facebook profile and basically learn their life story, or you can learn the life story that they present to the world, and maybe you find out all of that information was just a carefully curated facade. And that's another thing that Coco explores, of like, social media may seem like it's real life, but it in fact is not.
Right. Yes, exactly. So when you started writing this particular series, how much of your ideas did you have already, and how much came to be as you were constructing, and how did you go from there?
That is a very good question, because sometimes I have to figure out, like, what is my writing process, and how do I actually get from writing the words chapter 1 to writing the end? And I feel that I'm a very methodical writer, in that I like to have an outline of the basic information that happens, and who the characters are, what the town looks like. I often will draw out a little map of the town.
Yes, I
Just
do
so
my
that
math.
oh my goodness, I love book maps. When I was a kid, I was like, any book that had a book map, I was immediately like, I need to own this, because I loved knowing the world. And I find that it's really helpful for me. I have a book map in my Court of Mystery series, but not in my Cozy Mystery series. They're purely just for me to understand, like, okay, if Coco lives here, how long is it going to take her to get to the the town office, or how long is it going to take her to get to her client's store? And it really just becomes a visual aid in helping me formulate what the world looks like. And then I create an outline that I call a plot by day outline, and basically it covers the information, very, very vague information about what happens in each of the days mentioned in the book. Because another thing that I have a really hard time with is keeping track of what day is it when I'm reading and when I'm writing.
Yes.
There are some times where you get to a part in a book and it says the next day. It's like, is the next day like a week from when I started or when the action started, or is it day after, or like have we skipped months in this book? So I try to frame all the action that needs to take place during one day, so that I know where I'm going and I don't get lost along the way. Because I have before I really like came up with a coherent process for writing books at the kind of the speed of which I write them. I had like misplaced 2 weeks of time in a book. It's like, how did we get here? So once I have that, and it's basic information that the characters need to find out during that particular day to move the story forward. It's not really getting into any of the details of like what they actually are doing. And sometimes as I'm writing, I'll think of, like, let's have them go get ice cream, or let's have them go to the bookstore. And it's not a part of the outline that I've planned, but it fits in with the information that they need to divulge during that particular day. And then once all of that is done, I really sit down in front of my computer and I write. I write chapter by chapter. I'm not a person that goes back and forth with, thinking like, okay, well, I'm going to write this scene, but it's going to be later in the book, because for me, that's very confusing. I need to go in order of what my thoughts are in order
I do too.
to get the story out. And the information that I come up with along the way that may be like relevant to the series, or especially when it's new characters that I introduce. I do have a working document that has just the character name, their age, a brief physical description, so that I can be consistent throughout the one book as well as through the series as it continues.
Right.
So there's a lot of information that I have in my head that probably should be written down somewhere, but I just haven't gotten to that yet.
I find the hardest thing that, the thing that I most neglect when I'm writing something is to go into that. You call it another document. I call it my master book.
Mhm.
And I go in there and I put eye colors and I put setting, I put where things happen on which particular days and that kind of thing. And I avoid that because when I'm in the white hot aspect of writing on my draft, I
Mhm.
don't want to stop and make that
Yeah.
note. And so sometimes I'll put it on a little scrap of paper and then I'll lose the scrap of paper and then I forget to put it in there. And so
One thing that I have found that I do quite frequently is when I forget someone's name and I don't want to go back and figure out who I'm actually talking about, I will just put in like big brackets, like insert name here. And once I'm done writing the story in its completion, I'll do that, my handy little Control F to find every time
Right.
that I said insert. So it's like, okay, now I can go back and puzzle things through, because you're right. Like it's so, when you're in the zone, or maybe it's even like after a writing session and you're kind of jotting down notes, it's like, I don't want to interrupt what's going on in my mind and risk losing that train of thought.
Okay. When you get to a completed draft that you think you're through, but you're really not, what steps do you take next? Do you have beta readers?
I do. I do have beta readers, and I will say that when I have a completed draft, like I get to the end of a manuscript, I've typed to the end, I know that this is probably going to be, I'm going to reach this page probably 5 more times before I actually do send it out to beta readers. Because I have some like different phases of read throughs that I will go through. Once I finished a draft, I will just do let me read this from point A to the end. And does it make sense? Are there things that are wildly incorrect?
Yeah.
And kind of get the big picture of, the health of the manuscript. And then I'll go back a second time. And this time I'll be paying really close attention to phrasing and dialogue and how things are said. And I'll be looking for areas to maybe add a little bit more humor, or trying to add a little bit more of the niche that I'm pushing at that point.
Yes.
So like for the trending topic mysteries, I'll be adding like parts where, okay, like where can I emphasize technology, or, I haven't mentioned technology in a little while, like where can I incorporate it? And then probably by the 3rd draft, I will be reading for inconsistencies and making sure from page to page, like, it says here that Coco is sitting down, but then, 3 paragraphs later, she's over by the door and there's been no mention of her like having that movement.
When did that? She's magic.
Yeah. There's sometimes like, it just happens. And for me, and it's funny because when I read through and I catch all of these mistakes, and then you send it out to your beta readers and you get them back and you're like, how did I miss this? And all of these in these instances where I was specifically reading my manuscript for those inconsistencies, and to how they still continue to slip through. I am my own worst proofreader. I cannot proofread. I am a person that I will look at an email for an hour and think, okay, it's perfect, I can send it. As soon as I hit send, it's like, I forgot this comma, or like I did something wrong. And at this point, it's like, it takes me so long to compose an email because I'm just always so wary of my own proofreading skills. So it's always very enlightening and humbling to get that information back from your beta readers and see like, oh wow, like this is why we have editors.
Which I needed an editor when I sent my first email to you.
Oh, don't worry.
When you're doing your indie publishing, do you send your manuscripts out to a formatter? Do you have a cover designer that you particularly like to use? Do you try to do your own cover design, or how do you handle those things?
As I have like gotten deeper and deeper into indie publishing, I have started taking on more and more of the work myself.
Mhm.
I had mentioned earlier, it's like, I really like that control. It's like, that's like, I love being in control. But no, for my Court of Mystery series, I have the world's most incredible cover artist for those covers. They're absolutely stunning. And I can send him like a very vague brief of like, this is kind of what I'm thinking. And he comes back with just like designs that take my breath away. And I absolutely love working with him. I publish through the Amazon Direct Publishing service.
Right.
So
KDP.
yeah, KDP. I don't do wide distribution at this time, just because I really like the process that Amazon has set in place. And I have, knock on wood, not had any huge issues going through them exclusively. And because I use their platform, they give a lot of tools to their authors when it comes to formatting. They have a really nifty application now that's called Kindle Create. Basically, you just put your manuscript, it's a Word document, into Kindle Create, and it converts it into a really clean looking EPUB file that you can upload. And so I have used that in regards for like a Kindle book formatting. Paperback and hardcover is a little bit more intense, and I usually schedule a whole day where it's like, okay, Sarah, you're going to be really, really aggravated by the end of today, but you're going to get everything done. And luckily, as I have published, oh gosh, I think I'm on maybe 13 books at this time. It could be more that I have self-published. And I've gotten a good process. I've gotten my own template created so that I don't have to do a ton of formatting when the time comes. And then with my Glenmire Wynn mystery, I wanted to see, could I design a cover that that fit the genre? Because my Court of Mystery series, they're a bit darker, fantasy related, and they have like a certain look and feel of the cover. And I was like, that's not going to work for a supernatural cozy mystery. And so I was like, well, let's see what I can do. And I was I love graphic design. I absolutely love it. And I found it just very soothing and cathartic almost, and like a way that I can brainstorm while I am, doing something for fun. But I'm still like getting ideas and being inspired by the work I'm doing because I'm so connected to it. And so I was able to design the covers for You Can't Candle the Truth, and coming up in October, Too Much to Candle. And yeah, there are so many tools that are available to indie publishing authors now that it's really like you have dealer's choice when it comes to the selection of what you use. But I try, since I do publish through KDP, I try to use the tools that they have just because they integrate so nicely with their platform.
How do you maintain productivity? Do you set a daily word account or a daily word time?
I sometimes I wonder if I am maintaining productivity because there are days where it's like, wow, I feel like I've accomplished nothing.
Yes.
And then there are days where it's like, I could not have gotten more done. I think what has really helped me is I have it's a little aside service that I offer other authors for content creation for social media, just because I absolutely love technology, and a lot of folks are still, trying to figure out, what do I post on Instagram? How do I advertise my book online? So I launched my own little business last year called Books to Bundles that creates designs that feature books. And so they're just graphics that folks can post on their Facebook profile. They can use in Facebook ads, all that good stuff. So I thought when I launched that, I was like, how am I going to do this and write what will be eventually 4 series full time? And after some trial and error, I kind of figured out that I work best in the morning doing kind of administration work, because there's a lot that you have to do behind the scenes of, just, writing what your books are about. You have to do your own promotion. You have to maintain your website. A lot of authors have a blog. I'm trying to have a blog as frequently as I can. And there's just a lot of stuff that besides writing that authors are expected to do. And I think that taking care of all of that kind of in the weeds administration work right at the start of the day, when I'm kind of the most, I'm like kind of working up into my productivity. So, kind of kick things off around 8:30, probably by 11 o'clock, that's when it's like, okay, it's time to switch over and focus on actually getting some words down on the page. And so I try to write every Monday through Friday. I range from, I really focus on the word count that I generate. I know that there are a lot of people that don't like kind of relying on word count. But for me, because of the type of person I am, seeing the word count in my manuscript increase gives me a good feeling. And it helps me kind of reinforce, like, okay, like I got something accomplished today. So I try at least to get 800 words every day. That's like for kind of goal setting, it's like, that's the bare minimum. That's like, Sarah, you have to do this. Luckily, I'm able to get about 1,200 words per day on average. There are some sessions where it's like, I don't understand how it was feasible for me to write 6,000 words during that time frame, but I will take it. No, no questions. So and I work until probably the dinner hour. So the way that I kind of frame my day is, this is my job. I treat it as I would if I was going into an office. And so having those goals for a day, as well as monthly goals that I'm trying to hit, are also ways to help me stay on track. But if I have a day where, I end up writing a sentence, I'm not going to beat myself up too much about it, because that one sentence could be the turning point in a manuscript. So it's a little bit give and take, where it's like I give everything that I can to writing it, but sometimes I have to take what I can get.
Well, I know I may spend 3 or 4 hours on 37 words for a teaser, or I might spend a full day writing a blurb that's only going to be 200 words long.
Yeah.
And I don't feel like I've accomplished anything, but it's done, and I know it's done.
Yes. And that blurb that you write could be something that hooks a reader that's like, I need to read that book. And that's something that I've been trying to train myself as I have been writing for the amount of time that I've been writing. When I first started, I was so hard on myself. Like, it was almost like, Sarah, why are you doing something that you're like making yourself so miserable when you used to love writing for just fun? And realizing that anything that I am working towards and anything that I'm able to accomplish, that is, that's putting stock in the future. Like, a good blurb is everything. And if I needed a whole week to figure out what that blurb was going to be, I can't beat myself up over it, because it's a step in the right direction. And And I think it's important to cut ourselves some slack. I don't know about you, but I feel like we're really hard on ourselves a lot of the time, especially like, if you don't make that word count for a day, it's like, oh man, like what did I do? But the stuff that we're doing is important, and really makes our writing experience convert into something that a reader is going to enjoy. So I think that's what I have to remind myself is like what I'm doing will eventually pay off.
Well, like I usually try to work 6 days a week, and so I lost Saturday completely. By the time my disruptions, which I dearly love my disruptions, but sometimes they disrupt me when I don't want them to. But by the time they left, I was too exhausted to sit down and write. And so I thought, no, you've got to have family time. Family comes first.
Oh, for sure.
And it's like I have to put my little categories of things. I didn't used to think that I was that way, but I have found that I am actually a check off to do kind of person. Is there anything that we haven't talked about? Because we're down to, I think, 2 minutes, less than 2 minutes, that you wanted to mention.
Well, no, your questions were really great. I think we covered a lot of good ground. Is there anything else that?
The only thing that I can think is the one thing that we didn't get to that I have been asking people is, what is your favorite tool or your best tool to keep you going?
Canva. Canva is a design application that I do all of my book promotion work in, and it changed the game for me. I was making my like Instagram pictures in Microsoft Paint, which I think they like got rid of. It was so old. And it just investing in a solid design program was the best thing that I could have done for myself, because while writing is important, in order to keep writing, people have to buy your books and you have to market yourself and have that, have a brand that people are going to be interested in learning more about. So hands down, Canva was the best application that really changed the game for me.
We forget that while we're writing our book and everything, the most important thing is the visual cover. And that is the thing that attracts people first.
I know they say like, don't judge a book by its cover, but as people that are in the publishing industry, I'm sure that you and I both can sympathize. It's like, I don't think that's really, people really follow that anymore. Like people judge.
Yes, they do. They do. Well, I want to thank you before we run out of time, because we're down to seconds. And so thank you so much, Sarah, for participating in this interview. Please send me links so that I can put them in the show notes. And this was a wonderful interview. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for reaching out, Emily. I really appreciate it. And I'm so sorry for being late. I'm so embarrassed.
It's all right.
But it was great talking.
Thanks for listening to The Write Focus, a podcast for writers at all levels, hosted by Emma Lee from Writers Inc. Books, assisted by Remy Black and Edie Runes. Our focus is productivity, process, craft, and tools. Music is licensed through Audio Jungle, called Background Music Loop. Its creator is Alexander Polishchuk, known on Audio Jungle as Plastic 3. The music comes in different iterations. Show notes and resource links for this and other episodes can be found at thewritefocus.blogspot.com. Write to us at winkbooks@aol.com when you have questions, comments, and speculations. We will try to answer you as quickly as possible. By the way, we will not mine your email address. That's rude. If you find value in our content, share with your writing friends or write a review. We're small beans here without the advertising budget of the big peeps, and you can make a difference. And whatever occurs, write on.